Getting a job in cybersecurity in 2026 has massively changed from previous years. And you might be in a current cyber role and want more money and you want a better role. And you might be in a SOC role, for example. You might be a security analyst. You might be a pen tester, but you want to upskill in DevSecOps and AI security. Or you might be a career switcher, completely different career. And I've had this many times with people working for me over the years where you actually want to get into your first cybersecurity role. That's what this video is for. So this video and what I've put together is everything that I've learned the last kind of 6 months across my 10-year cyber career. But what I've realized in the last 6 months is that cybersecurity hiring has massively changed. We've all got it wrong. The degrees have got it wrong. The certifications in the industry have got it all wrong. And there needs to be a massive revamp. So I've put together 6 phases on if you want to either upgrade your cyber career into AI, cybersecurity, and DevSecOps, which I specialize in, or you want to completely career switch. And what are those 6 phases? I'll go through them like kind of at an overview level. And by the way, I'm Charlie. I'm a Chief Information Security Officer. I'm one of the youngest Chief Information Security Officers in the UK. And I got that role very quickly throughout my career by doing different roles in cybersecurity across a whole range of different industries. But I spent most of my career in DevSecOps, in the early years of DevSecOps, embedding in engineering teams, much more the technical engineering side of cybersecurity. And that's what I specialize in now. And I also run a DevSecOps training bootcamp that teaches this as well. And I want to share some of that wisdom. And this channel, I know some people have been following me for a while on other social media platforms. I'm doing long form content now. Now's the time. We need an army of AI security DevSecOps engineers. Everyone's learning the wrong thing. And believe me, I know for a fact I speak to lots of CISOs in the CISO community. So I just want to make sure that everyone's learning the right stuff. And it's really easy to get ahead of yourself, especially if you're learning cyber for the first time or if you're upskilling. Where do you start? What do you need to learn? What projects do you do? So I want to go through all that. So first of all, that first phase is scoping. Okay, so what's the actual role and what should and shouldn't you learn? The second phase is around knowledge. This is very much structuring what gaps you have in your knowledge and how to achieve getting it. The third phase, phase 3, is building. Actually building projects, getting hands-on with the technology and breaking it as much as you can. I cannot recommend it. I've broken so much stuff in my career, and even some things I never even fully deployed, but I learned so much about it so I could help secure teams building it. Then we've got the Certify phase, which I kind of call the assurance phase as well. What certifications, what assurance can you give future hiring managers that you can do the job role? And is that through certifications? Is that through doing courses and things like that, or even boot camps in that instance? Phase 5 is projects. Really, really key that you actually show that you can solve the challenges that hiring managers have. This has massively changed. Lots of people before would do like honeypot projects, IDS, AV projects. No, you need to know how to secure NA10 and do projects on agent security, on using Snowflake, Databricks, on using the technology that companies are using now and in a year's time. What is that role in a year's time? And when we get into the scoping phase, I'll go through that a bit. And the final phase is very much launch. Okay, so how in this current industry where you put one LinkedIn roll up, a hiring manager, and you get like 700 applicants within the first hour, how can you stand out? How can you apply for those right roles and make sure that your skill sets really get recognized? But like I said, the industry has changed. The first part, which is quite important to understand and recognize it, it's okay. Tech goes in these phases. And what do I mean by that? We've seen a lot of roles come and gone in tech the last few years. And increasingly, people in tech are having to wear more and more hats, okay? So before a typical tech company, you might have a separate developer, a separate QA engineer, a separate product owner, a separate agile coach, a separate DevOps engineer, a separate cloud engineer, platform engineer, all these different roles, then a separate cyber engineer, then a GRC analyst, then a SecOps analyst, then a DevSecOps, all these different roles. And over the years, we did see more and more as companies became kind of smaller and were carved out because of the modern use of tech. So you don't actually need a bigger stack. You don't need as big tech departments. These roles, people were having to wear more hats. When I think about tech in a year's time, with the use of vibe coding tools or no-code tools, Cursor, using agents, agent security as well, but the deployments from the tech side, automating pipelines, using tools like Amplify, things like that in AWS, those roles are coming more and more together. And we are seeing more startups than ever before because less people can do more things. So with that in mind, my theory and the view of others is that we're going to kind of see probably in a year or two's time, almost single technologist role where it is more product-led, product owner that actually does the code development, understands the requirements of customers, actually builds that together. So when we think about that and cybersecurity, where can we fit in? Where can we upskill to make sure that we can support much smaller size tech companies delivering what they need to? Because everyone's a tech company now as well, right? Let's just face it. Who's not using agents and deploying technology at scale? And then how can you get the right skills and certs to support those organizations in their journeys ahead? So the first of all, the scoping role, and some controversy here somewhat, and everyone's got different views on this, but this is what I've seen and what I've applied particularly to my students, is that the cybersecurity roles, the traditional roles in cybersecurity are changing. Okay, so where you did have a separate GRC role, a separate SecOps, incident response, a SOC team potentially, DevSecOps, AppSec. We're seeing a lot of these roles merge, and I think there's going to still be the requirement for that kind of corporate GRC side, but it's going to be much smaller than before, much more. And typically it'll be the CISO or head of InfoSec that will just wear that role. They'll use tools like Vanta, Drata to automate a lot of their typical GRC tasks, and they won't need a big function. Almost regardless of the company size, they will not need a big function. So that roles, or that department, if you like, massively changed. The incident response side, we're seeing a lot of automation in the incident response side. So that's also very much merging into kind of more of those core DevSecOps roles as well. And pen testing wise, well, that will always be mostly external. Some internal testing will be done, but again, that's going to be heavily automated with a lot of tools as well. And then your corporate security side will really sit under that GRC, CISO type element. And if I'm honest, you could probably split it into two roles. Corporate security, which includes the GRC, policies, antivirus, endpoint security, just the corporate side of the business security. And then you've got production. And that production side is very much focused on your deployments, your cloud infrastructure, your Terraform, your DevSecOps, your AppSec. Okay, and that role, you could give it all sorts of different titles, DevSecOps, DevSec AI security, whatever you want to call it. But really, it comes down to what you're actually doing. Okay, in most cases, you're securing production or you're securing corporate. Some companies might have someone doing both, but that's largely how we're going to look at it. So when scoping, don't get overly obsessed over terms and titles that you might see on job descriptions. I'd avoid doing that. Just focus more what the tasks are. A lot of the time, the companies don't quite know themselves, so you might have to do a bit of educating there. So scoping phase, if you're starting from the beginning, you might be in a SecOps role, you might be a SOC analyst or whatever, or you might be a career switcher. Got to decide, you've got to think ahead, where's tech going to be in a year's time? Because this is massive going to impact your kind of roadmap and your journey. So I would recommend you get into DevSecOps and AI security. Okay, so that means your skill set scope straight away, because you can't just go in and go, I'm going to learn cybersecurity. Like 10 years ago, you could do that. When I first got into cyber, you could get away with doing that. You can't do that now. You have to be really clear with what you're learning. There's too much information out there as well. So you need that really clear path. So first of all, scoping, what role do you want to do, or do you want to upskill in? My recommendation, DevSecOps and AI security. Scope that, corner it off. Then it comes down to knowledge. What do you need knowledge-wise? What things do you need to consume on a day-to-day basis to get that knowledge set? For DevSecOps and AI security, it's still in understanding how developers work and engineers in their current form. And what I mean by that is you need to understand how Git works, how GitHub works, how engineers come up with an idea, or product team come up with an idea, a customer requirement. They turn that into the software development lifecycle or the product development lifecycle. And the engineers then pick those tickets up, build their code, do the QAs, do their testing, and they launch it to production. You need to understand that full flow. You need to understand... when you look at this knowledge part, think a mile wide and an inch deep, right? And what I mean by, and I've always applied this approach, it's really easy to learn too much on one subject in cybersecurity that isn't relevant. So if you think about it, you're going to go into an organization and be their DevSecOps engineer or provide security assistance, put controls in place, or help advise. You need to be able to talk to. And if you can't do this right now and you're in a cyber role, okay, a lot of people won't hire you in the future. You've got to be able to talk to every different area of business about the technology they use. Every different area, whether it's talking to a data engineer, an ML scientist, whether you're talking to a DevOps engineer or a front-end developer, or whatever those roles are, you need to understand all those areas, which means you can't go too deep in one, because you know how our brains work, like typically, and with me, like if I take in too much, it's usually at the consequence of something else. So you've got to be really strict with that knowledge that you get. Okay, the curriculum. Look at the Cyber Boot Camp's curriculum, my boot camp's curriculum. If you want to just go self-study it all, you can do it, or you can join. It's up to you. Make sure you've got a really strict knowledge set. Like I said, understand modern development. I mean modern development. I don't mean the old way. Modern development, Git, commits, that's all still relevant. Got to understand cloud infrastructure. Okay, we're not doing anything on-prem. That's gone, by the way. That I killed that in the scoping. If you're learning or doing anything on-prem in the current role, you need to stop it now, because that's obviously not going to be the future. There's obviously a few edge cases with a few big bang stuff, but it's a waste of your time and it will really affect your employability in the future as well. So get that knowledge base, focus very much on deployments as well as developments. You've got to learn the cloud side. That's still relevant. Cloud is still king. Okay, so you still got to learn Terraform. Pick one of the one of the cloud providers, AWS, Azure, GCP. Doesn't really matter which one. They're all the same, to be honest with you. But learn how that modern infrastructure works. Really, really key. So development, production. You need to understand a bit of the incident response side. You need to understand a little bit of GRC. Like, it is still worth having some of that skill set, but not enough to do that job role. You want to stay in that DevSecOps, in the AI security side. You've got to understand the data side. Really key. I'll talk about certifications and things in a bit, but you've got to understand data structures, data quality, data assurance, and how you train models on data sets, how they tag and structure data. Really key now. And I'll probably say that's the single biggest thing. Not just understanding DevOps, development, deployments, but data. You've got to understand that full flow to be to be of any use in a business. Because like I said, you're going to come into a company, whether it's 10 people, 100 people, or 1,000, there'll be a separate data person or a data team, be a separate DevOps team, there'll be separate front end. We will see those roles merge a bit more, like, I have no doubt, but still get knowledge in all those areas. Okay, because if you've got knowledge in all those areas, you think when those companies do get smaller and they start using AI, you're going to be super, super valuable. And you might be the only person that understands that full stack end to end. And security architects and architects in general are going to be doing really well at this stage because they understand the whole deployment end to end. And that's modern AI development, really important. So understand that. Don't go heavy on networking. Okay, understand some of your basic ports and protocols. I don't recommend CISP. I did CISP many years ago. You don't need to memorize them all. We're not managing local WAFs and local firewalls. Yes, we're managing WAFs in AWS, Azure, or wherever our deployments are. But you don't need to be a massive expert on the networking side. Again, that will be overkill, I would say. Okay, so make sure you understand your CI/CD pipelines, your committing of code to repositories. Okay, your flows of Jira and tickets. Still understand containers, Docker, etc. is still relevant. Understand all the different deployment models there are, and then understand your AppSec, OS top 10, some of your basic pen testing tooling, super relevant. But for your AI security side, you've got to understand the OS LLM top 10, understand data poisoning, understand prompt injection, things like that, super relevant going forwards. And there's lots of good free resources out there that you can use in that as well. Check out my other links. So after phase 2, you start building that kind of knowledge set and plan it in Jira or something for what you're going to do. You've got to then start building. You've got to start playing with this technology. The best way to learn, don't just read out books, don't just do the theory. You've got to learn and break it yourself. Okay, so I recommend use Claude Code, use Cursor. Okay, start building some apps. There's no excuse just to get that knowledge. All right, they'll break, whatever, it doesn't matter. Build some apps, deploy them using something like Amplify and AWS. Nice and easy. Deploy some Terraform, deploy some CI/CD pipelines with GitHub Actions. Just practice the full end-to-end stack. Right, build a model. But start with the foundation model. But obviously, you can train some data, do something on top of it. Okay, use Google Colab. Use tools that use Jupyter Notebooks, use tools that data teams use, DevOps teams use, but use them a bit, use them once or twice, do one deployment. It will probably break, it won't work perfectly, but you've learned enough to hold a conversation and understand what someone's doing in that job role. Does that make sense? That's like, for me in my career, that was one of the biggest benefits of me jumping between teams and getting that really broad, mile-wide depth of knowledge. So you could hold a conversation with anyone in the business. And right now, with where we're looking, that is expected. If anyone doesn't think that, you are in denial of what's going to happen with tech over the next year. So build, break, play with Juice-Shot, do a bit of light pen testing. These are still relevant. But practice data poisoning, prompt injection, things like that. There's loads of cool stuff you can do in Google Colab. Use SageMaker, Bedrock, and get familiar with Databricks and Snowflake from the data team's perspective. Super important, but just build. I would create a knowledge plan where you're learning, you're building, you're learning, you're building, just to get that balance. Phase 4 is Certify. And, in this world, you do have to give hiring managers a bit of assurance, okay? And one of the quick and easiest things, I look at a CV, what certs have they got, right? Doesn't tell me they're going to do the job role. Absolutely not. And what I don't like seeing is like 10 generic cyber certs, like CISA, CISM, CISP, ISC, like all these different, no, I want to know you've got some sort of cyber knowledge, absolutely. So maybe CompTIA Security Plus or one of those generic cyber certs that holds some weight, but I then want to see technology-specific certs across the stack. So I break certs into kind of two. You've got your generic, and then you've got your technology-specific. Technology-specific certs, if you've, for example, passed a HashiCorp Terraform Associate, that does really tell me you do know Terraform, right? Like that gives me a good starting point. It doesn't mean say you can actually deploy it and you're good at it in your job, but it does give me some foundations. When I glance at your CV, I go, okay, yeah, that person should know Terraform. They're worth a conversation. So the idea here is get the generic certs, but also layer on top those technology-specific certs, okay? So for example, some of the ones I recommend, I've built a roadmap tech calculator called techu.io, tekyu.io. Check that out and you can click on your roles and it will generate a plan and you can customize it. Pretty cool. I'm going to say that I built it myself. But so you covered your generic cyber certs. Then I recommend you get a cloud cert, AWS Cloud Practitioner, the Azure equivalent or GCP equivalent. Then I recommend you do get Terraform Associate because it's still relevant in any company. Everyone's deploying Terraform, still super relevant. Let's get the Associate certification there. Then I recommend, and this is where things change a little bit, and they'll probably change a little bit by the time you get to this, so you can keep an eye on my videos when I change this advice. I then recommend you do something like the Coursera Microsoft AI and ML engineering cert. It's like a free course basically, but it's really teach you ML, data structures, really good, useful to do. So that way you've got your cyber, you got your data, you got your kind of DevOps cloud element, you've got your infra deployment through Terraform, and then you've got your ML and data. AWS do a really good ML architect associate search. You could do that. That's pretty good. And they do the AI practitioner, which is okay. I know CompTIA have got their AI security one coming out at the moment, but we on the DevSecOps bootcamp, on the Cyber bootcamp, we teach that as well. So yeah, check it out. But there's other resources, so feel free to explore those. But I do recommend ML and AI, but technology specific. So obviously that Coursera course is not technology specific. Getting things like Snowflake, Snowpro, Associate, I think it is. The Databricks, I think they do a security one. You could do, this has always been a debate, the Kubernetes security one. Not everyone uses K8s. Not everyone. A lot of companies do. I find it an annoying management plane that, to be honest, you don't really need. But you could get the K8s, and a lot of companies do deploy on Kubernetes. So you could do that as well. But really get that blender certs, because I'm going to look at that, I'm going to go, great, there's not one person in the business that you couldn't hold a conversation with and help provide security advice, okay? And layered in between this all, you've got to learn cyber, right? And this is the crazy, like, I know a lot of the stuff I've said is not learning cyber, but you can't secure how someone works or a technology works if you don't understand how it works. So that's why I structure it in this way. So throughout that, you've got to teach yourself threat modeling, understand the MITRE ATT&CK framework, cyber attack kill chain, Stride, Esther if you want, all the different frameworks there on that. And obviously you can look at the OS Top 10 and other modules. Just make sure you know that the cyber interweaving, the different methodologies you can use as well. Look at NIST, cybersecurity framework, etc. So you've got to layer that in between, which is how we structure and do the boot camp to make sure you use that technology. So yeah, get that good blend of certifications. That's what I strongly recommend. Certs alone will not get you the job role, and those certs I recommend are not super expensive. Phase 5, probably the most important phase, because when you look to hire someone, to be honest, even in the interview, you can ask them, 100 technical questions. Even if they get them all right, it doesn't mean to say they can do the job wrong. And not only that, even if they get them all wrong, it doesn't mean to say that they can't do the job wrong. So building projects and packaging them up in such a way that gives me assurance you can do the job role is really, really valuable. CISOs love this. I love this. I would much rather than me sit here going off all over my technical questions, you share your screen and show me a project you've built. That shows, and this is really key, build projects. I've got lots of resource on our website on how to do that. So for example, one of the things I do, and I know we teach our students to do, is look at job descriptions, and from those job descriptions you can work out the challenges those companies have. Okay, you can recognize the technology things. If they look at someone if they're saying they're using Snowflake, Databricks, there's some Terraform problems and things like that, that's somewhat of a challenge, so they want to see that. You can use all these tools for free. You can build these projects. So build a GitHub repo, use things like mermaid diagrams, okay? Use GitHub Actions if you want to do a deployment with SAS, DAST, IC, scanning, put all your scanners in place if that looks like that could be one of their challenges. Build a web app that simulates some of their payment systems or whatever it is they're doing, okay, and demonstrate how you secure that. But build projects, make them as nice public GitHub repos and put them on your CV as a link, okay? Build projects. I cannot recommend enough. Don't go too crazy with them, but just make them relevant to the role you're applying for and their tech stack. There's loads of websites that will actually tell you the tech stack of companies, by the way, so check that out. So a good blend of projects I strongly recommend, and absolutely do ML and agentic security projects. So build some N8N agents, have them automating some security processes. That's brilliant. If you could show a full SOAR automation using N8N, have automating some guard duty findings to Jira, whatever it is, using N8N agents to look at results, triage, things like that, that's going to blow away hiring managers. Think out the box. 6, launch. This is key. How do you get yourself out there, right? The world's changed massively. Hundreds, if not thousands of people sometimes apply for roles. So how do you get your CV up there? Well, if you do all the stuff I've just discussed, that should put you in really good stead. But you've got to have a unique approach to hiring or applying for job roles. First of all, you've got to decide what type of company you're applying for, right? Are you applying for a big FANG organization, etc., that will want degrees and things like that? Or, and I strongly recommend this, are you applying for smaller size startups, SMEs, small, medium enterprises, companies that are going for like Series A, Series B, Series C funding that really need this skill set? And to be honest, they're not going to be as strict on the entry requirements or the barriers to entry like degrees and things like that. If you've got the skills to do the job well, if you solve a challenge that they have got, they will pay you to do it. That's the name of the game. And that's the great thing about tech and cyber. If you're good at what you do and you really can demonstrate and pull that across well, you can get the job offer. So I strongly recommend you think about the company you're applying for, you structure your projects and your CV around that, and then you can look on things like Crunchbase and stuff like that to target certain companies at different series, different raise parts of the raise period they're going through as well. Obviously look at roles on LinkedIn, things like that, but don't obsess over titles. Look at the job descriptions and what you're doing, and then reach out to the hiring managers. It's not hard to work out who the people are in the business that you should be speaking to. Reach out, ask, how should I apply? What kind of projects would you want to see? See if you can just have a coffee even before interview. Okay, so really do that. And again, follow a structured, always go into every interview with 5 case studies, okay? Because they're going to ask you, so make them relevant to the company and the job role and have stories that come off from them. There was once a time where I had to do this, I had to build a CI/CD pipeline, the engineers weren't looking at the results, so we sent them to Jira, etc. We had a WAF, it missed the Terraform rules, so we put some checks in place as part of the CI/CD pipeline, etc., etc. Have those case studies in the back of your mind, back them up with live projects that you've built yourself. Again, don't use company data or anything like that. It all needs to be your own separate projects you've done in your spare time, okay? So, I'll ask questions at the end. I cannot emphasize this. All right, so you say you've gone through the interview process, you followed that approach. Share your screen as well during the interview. It's going to be really awkward. You'll get over it. Every time I've shared my screen, it's always gone down well. Just start sharing. Just say, oh, I've built this project. If they ask questions, say, how's shift left of the security left of the SDLC? Go, I've got a project. Can I quickly show this and share your screen and just go? And same, take your laptop into the interview and load it up. I've done that. So definitely, you've got to show your screen, show off your projects. It will blow them away, and it stops them from asking the technical questions that are just designed to trick you out anyway. So don't worry about that. Again, and then ask questions at the end. I hold this a massive weighting when people interview for me, because it shows me they're going to be proactive in the business, that they will challenge areas and things like that. So, ask, talk me through your software development lifecycle. How do you get code from production? What's your AI strategy? Are you using agents? What does your tech stack look like? What kind of challenges do you have? There's a million questions you can ask. You must go in with questions. When they ask at the end, are there any questions? It's a trick. Like, there are questions. There needs to be questions. If there's not, it's not going to look good. Okay, I strongly recommend. So that is your 6 phases. Good luck. Follow this channel. I'm going to be doing lots on AI security, ML security, DevSecOps, DevSecAI, where we see this merge of traditional DevOps, engineer roles, and how security can support that. I have a big network. However, I'm going to be bringing lots of the latest information to this channel on long form content. So please follow this YouTube, share it with your friends, etc. Follow my other socials, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Good luck.